Good afternoon. We're live. Thank you. Welcome to my podcast. Welcome to my podcast, which is called Learn to Teach to Succeed. And the premise of the podcast is always thinking that we are here to learn on earth. Second, we're here to learn so we can actually teach to others what we know to help them. And then once we can do that, then we can help and lead other people to be better leaders. So that is the plan for today. So welcome here. My name is Alain Faber. I've been teaching for 25 years in high school. I'm here to share with you my ideas on learning, on teaching, and on leadership. These are the three parts I have for this session. Soon, I'm going to see if I can get people to come to for interviews. That's part of this podcast here. But in the meantime, until I get the courage to welcome people here, here is the first thought of the day. And the first thought is about learning. And today's idea about learning is how often learning is relearning. So I was in high school today, and I was in my class, and we did a few activities, which I would call brain teasers, but I'll see how I played with the words. And I did an activity with them where they had to share with us some of their personal interest, put them on a presentation, and then they were to share it with the class. We had done small activities here and there to get to know each other, to make them feel comfortable. But that was a bigger project. And interestingly enough, when they were putting their thoughts together, they focused maybe for 25 minutes. Then today they presented. But what is interesting is when they presented their information, they shared with the class some of the stuff they liked. And then as they progressed, I mentioned to them that every time someone shares an information, that's an opportunity for you to see affinity with the new possible friends. Because often we're in a classroom, people are sitting at the opposite side of the classroom. They may not talk very much to each other for a whole semester. On the other hand, doing presentations on what interests them is a great way for each other to learn about what is interesting for the students. And they say, oh, I like that too, or here I have a friend who likes that too. And often we don't know the ways to approach someone new, especially in high school. People are self-conscious, they don't know what to say, and so on. So the activity was great because it allowed students to share what they know, and then to others to notice that other students have similar interests. And the reason why I want to talk about the idea of relearning is that all of us know what to do when we're in a new group setting. We know that it's always great to introduce ourselves, discuss about what we like, we don't like, and if anything, talk about the class or the situation. So if you go to a conference, you'd say, hey, I'm new here. I met so and so. I wanted to talk to you. My name is such, and then the conversation goes. If you're in a classroom, say, hey, I saw your information. I have similar interests. I would like to show you a picture of what I've done. Great ways to start learning the conversation. The idea is we all know to do that. We all know how to do it. But often we do not do this. And sometimes people say, well, I forgot. And the idea here is that we know how to behave. We know what to do. We know what to do at work, for projects, in family setting. But too often we feel or we pretend or we think that we don't know. But often when we say, oh yeah, I knew that. And I'm sure that today or in the last week, we've all said, oh yes, I knew that. And the reason for that is that often what we do day in, day out is relearning what we have previously learned. And that takes a lot of energy. And the reason why, even for me as a teacher, it's a relearning experience is that I just finished 2 months in the summer. I'm going back with a new group and all the things I know here what to do. On the other hand, when you start to do something, you say, oh yes, I knew how to do that. Or I remembered how I did the last time. And what happened is I'm relearning every day new things to help each other. So that's important to realize that. And when you keep in mind that, oh, I'm just relearning this, then it takes the pressure off. Because too often people say, well, I need to know something. But if you keep in mind that learning is an experience and it's okay to relearn something and then to learn something new, then it decreases the stress, the pressure, the tension on collaborating with others. And in the school setting, it is very important because if you don't accept the fact that learning um, is not possible, or if you're in a situation where you feel that learning is you're unable to learn, then it's very stressful. So the idea here is learning is possible. Relearning is amazing. And what happens is when we have the idea of relearning or to unlearn, so nowadays in the school we talk about the idea of unlearning, which means we've learned something in the past and we realize that maybe there's a new perspective we need to look into. There are new ways of approaching a situation. And therefore, learning happened in the past. And new learning, relearning needs to happen. And I think that's important because I do believe that every day worth living is a day where you need to learn something. It needs to be very little, but every time we learn something, it makes the day look great and be great. And I got that philosophy from someone I met in Montreal when I was there in university. I don't know his name because it was someone in the bus, and I was taking the city bus or the subway. I don't remember, but there were a few people sitting around, and oops, the conversation started to go on, and the person in the bus was saying that the person fell in love every day, and we all started to laugh, saying, "How is it possible that someone can fall in love every day?" And then in the discussion, we realized that his idea of falling in love is the fact that sometimes he would go in a park and he would see beautiful flowers, and then he would fall in love with the nature. So that was for him falling in love. He would go and walk in old Montreal, he would see an old building, he would fall in love with the building. He would meet a new person, he would fall in love with their being. He would read a book, he would fall in love with the book. He would um, he would go and see a bird flying. He would fall in love with the moment of watching the bird. If you work on a project, he would fall in love with the event or the activity in the project, and that's important. And amazingly, when you think about that, if you are every day knowing that something may happen and you're going to fall in love with something, for the same way I just mentioned earlier, I know that when I start my day, I'm going to learn something today. It keeps the day fun, and then you can continue that way. And that's the best way to be able to appreciate the day as we go along. So that's a statement about learning today, and I thought I would share that with you. Um, Good. Voila. Perfect. The second segment for today's podcast will be about teaching. And the statement I have is it's easy, but it is out of my comfort zone. As a teacher, when I'm in a situation where I bring in activities, we have a text that we need to read and answer questions. I ask them to reflect. We have an experiment to do in a science class. The whole idea is we are going out of our comfort zone to learn something new and then assess that new learning with what we already knew. And I was talking to my students today how I like my class to have that feel of, oh, it is easy. And the reason is for that is if you go to a situation where you feel that whatever you're going to do, we're going to find a way to make it easy, then it decreases the stress. It makes people feel comfortable. I'm not saying that being easy, it's not going in your comfort zone. Because when you're learning, you create situation where new learning can happen. You're out of your comfort zone and therefore learning can happen. But you can do this in an easy way. I'm sure you've been working with a leader, maybe your team manager or a teacher, or even a friend playing a sport, and you look at them and you say, well, you know what? You make it look easy. And in some ways, that is true that with experience, You make everything look easy, feel easy, but it's not easy. The experience make it so that you feel that it's easy. So for students and for teachers, if you're trying to do something, learning something, complete a project, the whole idea is if you can keep in mind that, oh, it is easy, what will happen is when you get to that place where it's an uncomfortable place, then you say, okay, it's uncomfortable, but I think I'm going to make it because it will be easy. Um, so, for example, if you have a science lab and you are, let's see if I can, so you're growing plants. We're going to do uh, some uh, let's see, we're going to take seeds of plants and we will germinate them. And the thing is, we don't know what's going to happen. Hopefully, all the plants will germinate and will be great, but we're not quite sure. When we work with equipment for the first time, students are not quite sure. When they are thinking about their questions, what are they going to do to their seeds, hoping they live? So it is out of their comfort zone because we don't know what the outcome is. On the other hand, if you've laid out a process, like the scientific inquiry process, and you made the steps feel easy, what happened is it feels easy. Therefore, I can address the uncomfortable place much more easily. And I think that's the best way to to make things uh, to make things more as interesting as possible. When I say easy, I remember when I had the personal trainer in a gym, and I remember when we were doing the sets, and often it was on the third set, and he was trying to push me a bit longer, and I was pushing, and he was saying, "Oh, it's easy, it's easy." That was one of his favorite words. And then when when I was thinking back, it was easy. Pushing weight one way or lifting weight, that's an easy thing. But I was in a place where my body was uncomfortable. But keeping in mind that it was an easy thing, I was always able to push a little bit more. If you are, for example, part of a team in a sales team and you're doing cold calling, well, it's easy. You take the phone and you call the next person. It is easy. It is uncomfortable because you don't know what the conversation will be. You don't know what will be the outcome of a phone call. On the other hand, if you have your script, if you've practiced, the fact that you're going to make another phone call is an easy step. And feeling it's easy allows you to be more proficient in that uncomfortable event. What are the other example I have? Let's see. Experience. Perfect. Um, yes, and that is the point I have about the teaching today. I had a few examples and somehow I forgot. It happens. So if you don't know me, my name is Alain Faber. I've been uh, experimenting with podcasts. I decided that it was something I wanted to try to set up and then find ways to interview amazing people about how they learn, what they love to learn, uh, if they are teaching others, what are the things they know that they can teach other, and about leaderships, all the ideas that I love to think about. Perfect. The next bit I'm going to talk is the third segment is about leadership, and it will be the same topic as the teaching part, which is you make it look easy. So let's see. When you are in a leadership role, I remember a couple of years ago I was the head of a department, and in many ways people said, well, you make it look easy. And the idea here is that when someone comes in with a situation with a class, situation with individuals, situation with curriculum, and a person comes in and they in a situation where they are facing something difficult, they are in a situation where they're uncomfortable and they don't know how to get out of that, to feel comfortable enough to say, okay, I need to get out of my mind so that I can be a better teacher. And we were talking, and often the best thing to do is for me to listen, because listening to them allowed them to express, first of all, their thoughts and their emotions. And then I would write down what they were. And then they would outline what are the key issues they had to deal with that was outside of their comfort zone that they had difficulties with. And by listening to them, they were giving me all the information I needed to help them. Let's see. If someone comes in and they have a difficult situation and they talk about the emotion to see how hard it is, and they feel that they're unsure of themselves, they're not sure what to do, then you always bring back to the fact that an example that they've done in the past that you know they have succeeded. So, for example, they may say that they have difficulties with a student and it was not easy. Well, I would remind them, do you remember a few weeks ago, a few months ago, you told me about the students, and can you remind me what happened? And then themselves, they share the situation, they share what happened, they share their emotion, and then they share their outcome despite the difficulties at that time. And interestingly enough, this is enough for them to often just reflect, saying, okay, back then it was hard, and I realized that, okay, I was able to get through it. And looking back, I made it easy. So it's one way to make them feel that they can do it. The next one is when you think about the events and the actions that we're taking, or the uncomfortable aspect of a situation. By talking about it, often you let go some of the difficulties you think of, because by describing it, then you're no longer feeling the situation. You're describing it with words, and it's a bit more impersonal. And then you realize that just talking about it, you are able to set aside the emotion and see what we can do. And the other part, when you feel uncomfortable, is to realize that someone has been teaching for maybe 10, 10 months, some others 3 years, some other people 5 years. And the idea here is, once you realize that people have experiences, you build on that experience, saying, okay, it was uncomfortable a few months ago. Let's see how it is similar or different this time. Do you have some ideas? And then we go from there. But at the beginning, we always have to figure out how they feel and find a way to make them feel better. Because when they feel better, then it's easier to make it feel easy. Because you feel better, you feel more comfortable, and you say, okay, I can do this. Now, when you feel like this, then you look and say, okay, what is the next step? What was the situation that was tricky? Then we look at it. We ask, okay, what do you think you could do next? And often they have ideas to do what to do, and then they try it. Doesn't mean it always works. What I realized that is to look at their situation and outlining 5 things they need to do, and then have them try it. The success rate is not as good as for them to give some solutions and try it themselves. Because my ways of doing things are great for me, but not necessarily for others. So when someone asks for advice on, let's say, a situation they are facing, instead of saying, okay, this is what I would do, then I turn it into a story, say, okay, something similar happened to me in the past. I share with them what was the setting, then I share what I did and what was the outcome. And then by doing that, I also share some of the difficulties that I have, because it's important as a leader to show some vulnerability, because the leader is not an all-knowing. He cannot do everything, or she cannot do everything. There's always learning happening. So the point is, you always want to see, okay, you want to support your team member in what they're doing. Because I've been teaching for 25 years, that's great. But 25 years ago when I started, is so far away from what's happening right now. I remember I had my first cell phone once I started working in teaching. So it was after the year 2000. So I have done all my learning, all my schooling, went to university to become a teacher, and started teaching without a phone. So here, everybody has phones, Teachers, when they go to university, they learn different things, different ways. So my ways are great for me and from what I've been through. It's important for me to give them a chance to say, okay, you know a lot. Let's see if I can make you feel that it's going to be okay, or make you feel that it may be easy. It's never easy the first time, but when you do it a few times here and there, then you realize that, okay, I can do this. I've done some training. Let's see what I can do. Then the confidence build and they can reach it. And I think that's the best way to approach that. And that will be our session for today. Let's see what we talked about. Today we had three sections on learning, teaching, and leadership. In the learning part, I talked about the fact that when we learn, it's amazing, but often relearning allows us to have a deeper understanding of the different topics. And we need to appreciate that relearning needs to happen because we never remember everything. Second one, for teaching, I talked about that sometimes it's easy. So for the teaching and leadership, actually, it is the idea that the best way to be able to move forward is to find a situation where you say, okay, it's going to be easy, but I might be out of my comfort zone. And the reason to feel saying, okay, I'm going to make it easy, it allows you to build the confidence. Because once you get out of your comfort zone, you need to say, okay, I need to get through it, and I know that I can do so. So hopefully you enjoyed this third podcast. I'm learning. If you have any comments on how I could improve this, please put in the comments below. And my goal is to find ways to have interviews in the short term and also build our audience, because learning is amazing, teaching is amazing, and success to leadership as well. On this, have a wonderful afternoon, and I'll see you next week, same time, Wednesday at 7:30. Bye-bye.